The massive arena stretched across 12 square kilometers of polished metal flooring, its towering walls reaching heights that seemed to touch the artificial sky of the station. Thousands of alien spectators filled the viewing platforms, their various forms creating a symphony of colors, sounds, and scents that would overwhelm most beings. The Zephyrian Empire had built this arena as the ultimate test of combat prowess, where warriors from across the galaxy came to prove their worth and earn the respect of the most powerful civilizations in known space. Commander Vextar stood at the center of the arena, his imposing 8-foot frame casting long shadows under the brilliant lighting systems. His forearms rippled with bioengineered muscle, each limb capable of crushing steel beams with ease. The chitinous armor that covered his body had been crafted from the shells of extinct war beasts, polished to a mirror shine that reflected the arena lights like a deadly beacon. His species, the Krillians, were known throughout the galaxy as the ultimate warriors, bred for combat across countless generations. Vextar had never known defeat. In his 300 years of life, he had conquered 17 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire, leading armies that numbered in the millions. His personal combat record included victories over champions from every major species in the galaxy. The Thrakari Berserkers, with their legendary rage and titanium bones, had fallen before his blades. The crystalline Vorthan monks, masters of energy manipulation and thousand-year martial traditions, had been shattered by his tactical brilliance. Even the cybernetic Nexus warriors, with their quantum-enhanced reflexes and plasma weaponry, had proven no match for his raw power and combat experience. The crowd roared its approval as Vextar raised all 4 of his arms, displaying the ceremonial weapons of his victories. In his upper hands he held curved blades forged from meteoric metal, their edges sharp enough to slice through molecular bonds. His lower hands gripped energy gauntlets that could project force fields or discharge enough electricity to power a small city. Around his neck hung the traditional war chains of his people, each link representing a fallen enemy of significant renown. Today's challenge had come from an unexpected source. The humans, those pale, weak creatures from a backwater system called Sol, had requested representation in the arena. Most of the Galactic Council had laughed at the suggestion. Humans were barely more than animals in the eyes of the major powers, having only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century. Their technology was primitive, their society chaotic, and their physical capabilities laughably inadequate compared to the established warrior races. But the Zephyrian Emperor, in his infinite wisdom and perhaps his infinite cruelty, had granted the request. Let the galaxy see what happened when inferior beings attempted to challenge their betters. It would serve as an excellent example to any other minor species that might harbor delusions of grandeur. The human representative entered through the arena's secondary gate, and a collective gasp of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Where they had expected to see some heavily armored giant, enhanced with the best technology their primitive world could offer, instead walked a being that appeared almost ordinary. The human stood barely 6 feet tall, with a lean build that seemed almost fragile compared to the massive alien warriors the crowd was accustomed to seeing. He wore simple black clothing that looked more like a training outfit than battle armor. No visible weapons adorned his person, no energy shields shimmered around his form, no cybernetic enhancements gleamed from his limbs. His skin was a weathered brown, marked by what appeared to be old scars, and his dark hair was cut in a style that seemed purely functional. Most puzzling of all were his eyes, which remained calm and alert as they surveyed the arena with the same casual interest someone might show when examining a new room. The arena announcer's voice boomed across the stadium in the universal trade language. Citizens of the Zephyrian Empire, today we witness a historic moment. The human warrior claims to represent something called a Navy SEAL from their military forces. Our records show no significant victories for this branch of their armed forces, no conquests of note, no technological achievements worthy of mention. Laughter echoed from many of the viewing platforms. The Krillian delegation howled with amusement, their war cries mixing with sounds of mirth. The Thrakari representatives pounded their armored fists against their chest plates in a rhythmic display of derision. Even the normally stoic Vorthan observers allowed themselves subtle expressions of amusement at the spectacle about to unfold. Vexstar studied his opponent with the analytical mind of a veteran warrior. He had learned long ago not to underestimate any enemy, regardless of appearance, but this human truly seemed to offer no visible threat. There were no hidden weapons he could detect, no energy signatures indicating advanced technology, no pheromone markers suggesting enhanced physical capabilities. The being appeared to be exactly what it looked like. An ordinary member of a species that had barely crawled out of their planetary gravity well. The human, who had introduced himself simply as Marcus, stood with his hands at his sides, breathing steadily and showing no signs of pre-combat stress. This itself was mildly interesting to Vexstar. Most opponents, even experienced warriors, showed some physical indicators of adrenaline response when facing him. Elevated heart rate, changes in breathing patterns, subtle shifts in posture as they prepared for violence. This human displayed none of these tells. Perhaps, Vexstar thought to himself, the creature is simply too primitive to understand the danger it faces. The ceremonial pre-combat rituals began. Ancient drums beat out rhythms that had accompanied gladiatorial contests for thousands of years. Priests from a dozen different species offered blessings and challenges to the cosmic forces that governed warfare. Energy barriers rose around the combat area to protect the spectators from stray weapons fire or flying debris. Medical teams took their positions at strategic points around the arena. Though most doubted there would be enough left of the human to require their services, Vexstar performed the traditional Krillian war dance, his forearms moving in complex patterns while his feet traced ancient symbols in the arena floor. Each movement was both a display of physical prowess and a meditation technique, designed to focus his mind for the coming violence. His weapons gleamed as they caught the light, their surfaces reflecting the faces of the thousands of beings who had come to witness this spectacle. The human remained motionless throughout these ceremonies, watching everything with those same calm, alert eyes. He seemed to be cataloging information, filing away details about his environment and opponent with the methodical approach of someone conducting research rather than preparing for mortal combat. As the rituals concluded, the arena fell silent except for the hum of the energy barriers and the distant sound of recycling systems maintaining the station's atmosphere. The moment of combat was approaching, and even those who were certain of the outcome found themselves leaning forward in anticipation. The combat coordinator, an elderly Vorthan whose crystalline form had been scarred by centuries of overseeing arena matches, raised his staff to signal the beginning of the contest. Warriors, you understand the rules. Combat continues until one participant yields, becomes incapacitated, or dies. There are no restrictions on weapons, tactics, or abilities. The honor of your species rests upon your performance. Vexstar acknowledged this with a traditional salute, his blades singing as they cut through the air. The human simply nodded once, a gesture so casual it seemed almost disrespectful to the solemnity of the moment. Combatants, prepare yourselves, the coordinator announced, his voice carrying clearly throughout the arena despite being spoken at a normal volume. Vorthan vocal cords were capable of perfect acoustic projection, one of many abilities that had made them valued throughout the galaxy as mediators and officials. The crowd held its collective breath. Betting pools that had been running throughout the station showed overwhelming odds in favor of the Krillian champion. Most wagers concerned not whether Vexstar would win, but how quickly the human would fall and what would remain of him afterward. Vexstar settled into his preferred combat stance, weight distributed across his four limbs for maximum stability and striking power. His primary weapons hummed with energy as their power cores activated. His secondary arms flexed, ready to grapple or strike as the situation demanded. 300 years of combat experience, focused into a single moment of perfect readiness. The human had not moved. He stood in the same relaxed position he had maintained since entering the arena. Hands at his sides, feet shoulder-width apart, breathing steady and controlled. To most observers, he appeared completely unprepared for what was about to happen to him. Begin, The coordinator's voice rang out across the arena. Vexstar exploded into motion with the devastating speed that had made his species legendary. His powerful legs drove him forward while his arms brought his weapons to bear, closing the distance between himself and the human in a blur of chitinous armor and gleaming metal. The attack he launched was a masterpiece of Krillian combat doctrine, designed to overwhelm an opponent through superior speed, strength, and coordination. His upper blade swept in from opposite D. The medical teams reached Vexstar within moments of his collapse, their advanced scanning equipment immediately beginning diagnostic procedures on the fallen champion. The Krillian physiology was well understood throughout the galaxy, and their medical technology could typically revive even severely injured warriors within minutes. But as the scanners hummed and displayed their readings, the medical technicians found themselves facing a puzzle that challenged their understanding of both biology and combat. Vexstar was completely uninjured. No bones were broken, no organs had been damaged, no energy weapons had discharged into his system. His vital signs were strong and stable, his brain activity normal for an unconscious Krillian. By every measure their equipment could detect, he should have been awake and ready to continue fighting. Yet he remained unconscious, his massive form limp and unresponsive on the arena floor. Dr. Zeleth, the chief medical officer for the arena, was a Vorthan whose crystalline structure had been modified specifically for medical practice. Her body contained bioscanners more sophisticated than most hospital equipment, and her centuries of experience included treating warriors from every known species. She had never encountered anything like what she was observing now. The neural pathways show temporary disruption, she announced to the arena officials, her harmonic voice carrying easily across the combat area. Specific nerve clusters have been precisely targeted to cause systematic shutdown of motor functions without permanent damage. This level of anatomical knowledge and surgical precision should be impossible to achieve without extensive cybernetic enhancement or years of medical training. The crowd stirred uneasily at this pronouncement. Many of the spectators were warriors themselves, and they understood the implications of what they were hearing. To defeat an enemy through superior firepower or advanced technology was one thing. To defeat them through such precise knowledge of their biology suggested capabilities that were far more disturbing. Marcus remained where he had been standing since the fight ended, his hands once again at his sides, waiting for instructions from the arena officials. Several security teams had taken positions around the combat area, their weapons trained on the human, but he seemed completely unconcerned by their presence. If anything, he appeared to be studying the arena's architecture and security procedures with the same casual interest he had shown earlier. High above in the VIP viewing platforms, the real power brokers of the Zephyrian Empire were engaged in heated discussions about what they had just witnessed. Emperor Zathmar himself was present, his massive form occupying a throne that had been carved from a single piece of meteor crystal. The ruler of 17 systems and countless billions of beings was not accustomed to surprises, especially ones that challenged his understanding of the galaxy's power structure. "Explain to me," the Emperor said, his voice a low rumble that caused the platform to vibrate, "how a primitive human has just defeated our greatest champion in 3 seconds. Fleet Admiral Kexthra, the Emperor's chief military advisor, consulted the tactical displays that had been recording the combat from multiple angles. "My lord, our analysis systems are struggling to process what occurred. The humans' movements show efficiency ratings that exceed our theoretical maximums." His knowledge of Krillian anatomy was more precise than our own military medical databases. General Morduk, commander of the Empire's elite guard forces, leaned forward in his seat. "Perhaps this human has been enhanced with technology we don't recognize. Some form of quantum neural interface or genetic modification that doesn't show up on our scanners." "No," interrupted Dr. Yosara, the Empire's chief xenobiologist. "I've been monitoring the biological readings throughout the contest. This human shows no signs of artificial enhancement. No cybernetic implants, no genetic markers for modification, no energy signatures indicating external assistance. What we just witnessed appears to be the result of training and knowledge, not technology." The implications of this statement sent ripples of concern through the assembled officials. If humans could achieve such capabilities through training alone, what did that say about the species as a whole? How had the galaxy's intelligence networks failed to identify such potential in what they had dismissed as a primitive civilization? Down in the arena, Vexstar was finally beginning to stir. The medical teams had administered neural stimulants that were gradually overriding whatever the human had done to his nervous system. His eyes opened slowly, focusing with difficulty on the lights above him. As awareness returned, so did the crushing weight of what had happened. He had been defeated. Not just defeated, but utterly dominated by an opponent he had expected to crush without effort. In front of thousands of spectators with representatives from every major power in the galaxy watching, he had fallen in seconds to a being his species considered barely more advanced than animals. "How?" he whispered, his voice barely audible even to the sensitive hearing of the medical team surrounding him. Dr. Zeleth checked her scanners one more time before answering. "Your nervous system was disrupted through precise pressure point manipulation. Whoever did this possesses knowledge of Krillian anatomy that exceeds our own medical textbooks. The techniques used were surgical in their precision and devastating in their effectiveness." Vexstar struggled to sit up, his pride warring with the reality of his situation. 300 years of victories, and it had all been ended by techniques he didn't understand used by an opponent he had underestimated catastrophically. "I want to know everything about this human. Everything about their species. How is such knowledge possible?" Meanwhile, the arena coordinator had finally recovered sufficiently from his shock to resume his duties. The Vorthan approached Marcus cautiously. Flanked by security personnel whose weapons remained trained on the human despite his apparent lack of aggressive intent. "Human warrior," the coordinator said formally, "you have achieved victory in the time-honored tradition of the arena. Do you claim the right of conquest over your fallen opponent?" Marcus looked at the coordinator with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the encounter. "No," he said simply. "I'm not here to conquer anyone. I was sent to demonstrate capability and establish respect for my people. That's been accomplished." This response created another stir among the spectators. In galactic tradition, a warrior who achieved such a decisive victory had the right to claim their opponent's weapons, rank, and sometimes even their life. The fact that this human was refusing such prizes suggested motivations that the audience found difficult to understand. "Then what do you claim as your prize?" the coordinator asked, genuinely uncertain about how to proceed. "Information," Marcus replied. "I want to meet with your military leaders. My people are interested in establishing diplomatic relations with the Zephyrian Empire. We believe there are benefits to cooperation between our civilizations." The audacity of this request sent shockwaves through the viewing platforms. A representative from a minor species had just defeated their greatest champion and was now asking for an audience with the Empire's leadership. Protocol demanded that such a request be denied, but the circumstances were unprecedented. In the VIP platform, Emperor Zathmor was weighing his options carefully. His first instinct was to order the human's immediate execution. The demonstration of human capabilities was disturbing enough that eliminating the threat might be the wisest course of action. But doing so would send its own message throughout the galaxy, one that might be interpreted as fear rather than strength. "Bring the human to me," the Emperor finally decided. "If his people believe they have something to offer the Empire, I will hear what they have to say." The security teams formed an escort around Marcus, who followed them without resistance as they made their way toward the platform lifts. As they walked, he continued to observe his surroundings with the same methodical attention to detail that had characterized his entire time in the arena. Vex Tar, now on his feet but still unsteady, watched the human's departure with a mixture of respect and confusion. He had studied warrior traditions from across the galaxy, had faced opponents who fought with honor, cunning, brutality, and everything in between. But he had never encountered anyone quite like this human. The being had demonstrated overwhelming capability while showing no interest in the traditional rewards of victory. It was a contradiction that challenged everything Vextar thought he understood about warfare and warriors. As the lift carried Marcus toward the Emperor's platform, news of what had transpired in the arena was already spreading across the galactic communication networks. The defeat of Vextar was shocking enough, but the manner of that defeat was causing diplomatic incidents on dozens of worlds. The Krillian homeworld was in chaos as their government struggled to process the implications of their greatest champion's defeat. Military advisors were demanding immediate retaliation against the human homeworld, while scientists were calling for intensive study of human capabilities. The Krillian Emperor himself had gone into isolation, refusing to see anyone while he contemplated what this meant for his species' reputation as the galaxy's premier warriors. The Thrakari delegation was equally disturbed, though for different reasons. Their culture valued strength. AB. Emperor Zathmar studied the human before him with new interest. In his 3 centuries of rule, he had encountered countless diplomats, warriors, merchants, and supplicants. All of them had approached him with carefully calculated combinations of flattery, fear, and submission. This human was doing none of those things. Instead, he had just delivered what could only be interpreted as a subtle threat, while standing in the heart of the Empire's power. "You speak boldly for someone surrounded by my guards," the Emperor said, though his tone suggested more curiosity than anger. "Are you threatening the Zephyrian Empire, human?" Marcus shook his head slightly. "No, Your Majesty. I'm offering context. What happened in your arena today was a demonstration of individual capability. But individual capability is meaningless compared to what a society can achieve when it applies certain principles consistently across its entire military structure." General Morduk leaned forward in his seat. "What principles? What makes your species believe they can stand against established galactic powers?" "Adaptation," Marcus replied simply. "Every species in this galaxy has developed their military doctrine around their natural advantages. The Krillians built their reputation on superior strength and multiple limbs. The Thrakari rely on berserker rage and enhanced bone density. The Vorthan use their crystalline structure and energy manipulation capabilities. All impressive, all effective against opponents who fight according to predictable patterns." Fleet Admiral Kexthra accessed his tactical databases as the human spoke. "And humans? What natural advantages do your species possess?" "None," Marcus said, causing surprised murmurs from the assembled officials. "Humans are weaker than Krillians, slower than Vectari, less armored than Thrakari, and lack the energy abilities of the Vorthan. We have no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no specialized biology that makes us superior warriors by birth." Dr. Yosara activated her analysis equipment, studying the human with renewed interest. "Then how did you defeat our greatest champion? Our scans show no technological enhancement, no genetic modification, no external assistance." "Because," Marcus said, "when you have no natural advantages, you learn to create artificial ones. When you can't rely on superior strength, you develop superior technique. When you can't overpower your enemies, you learn to understand them better than they understand themselves." He gestured toward the arena below, where medical teams were still assisting Vextar. "Your champion fought exactly as Krillian combat doctrine dictates. 4-limbed assault pattern, reliance on superior reach and strength, expectation that raw power would overcome any opposition. It's an effective strategy against opponents who fight in predictable ways. And you fought unpredictably?" General Morduk asked. "I fought efficiently," Marcus corrected. "Every motion calculated for maximum effect with minimum energy expenditure. Every strike targeted based on detailed knowledge of Krillian anatomy and nervous system architecture. Every technique refined through thousands of hours of training against opponents who were faster, stronger, and more naturally gifted than I am." Emperor Zathmar was beginning to understand the implications of what he was hearing. "You're saying that your entire species fights this way? With such precision and knowledge?" "Not just fights, Your Majesty. Everything we do is approached with the same principles. When humans discovered we weren't the strongest species in our own ecosystem, we learned to make tools. When we realized we couldn't fly, we built machines that could. When we found we couldn't breathe underwater, we developed technology that allowed us to explore the ocean depths. Marcus paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. When we reached space and discovered we weren't alone, we did what humans always do. We studied everyone we encountered, learned their strengths and weaknesses, and figured out how to deal with them effectively. Dr. Yilsara's scanners were providing her with detailed biological readings of the human as he spoke. Your stress indicators remain completely stable, she observed. You show no signs of deception, no elevation in heart rate or breathing. You genuinely believe what you're saying. Because it's true, Marcus replied. I didn't come here to boast or threaten. I came to demonstrate capability and establish the foundation for productive relations between our civilizations. What happened in the arena was necessary to get your attention and earn your respect. Now that we have both, we can discuss more practical matters. Fleet Admiral Kexthro was running tactical simulations in his head, trying to calculate what human military capabilities might actually represent. If your species possesses such abilities, why haven't we detected evidence of them before now? Our intelligence networks monitor all known civilizations. Because you weren't looking for the right things, Marcus said. Your networks were designed to detect conventional military buildups. Ships, weapons, armies, fortifications. Human military doctrine doesn't rely heavily on any of those things. We prefer smaller units, unconventional tactics, and the kind of precise strikes that can neutralize superior forces without direct confrontation. The Emperor leaned back in his throne, his massive form settling with a sound like grinding stone. You're describing assassination and terrorism, not honorable warfare. I'm describing efficiency, Marcus countered. Human military history is filled with examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior tactics, better intelligence, and more effective use of available resources. We've learned that killing 1,000 enemy soldiers is less effective than neutralizing the 10 commanders who lead them. This statement sent visible shockwaves through the assembled officials. Galactic warfare had traditionally been conducted according to established rules that emphasized direct confrontation between military forces. The idea of deliberately targeting command structures was considered dishonorable by most civilized species. General Morduk's combat experience allowed him to immediately grasp the implications. You're talking about destabilizing entire military organizations through targeted strikes on leadership elements. Such tactics could render traditional numerical advantages meaningless. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. Humans learned long ago that winning a war is more important than fighting it honorably. We study our opponents until we understand their weaknesses. Then we exploit those weaknesses with surgical precision. It's not personal, it's just practical. Dr. Yilsara was reviewing her historical databases while listening to the conversation. Our records show that human civilization has been constantly engaged in warfare throughout your species' development. Your homeworld has seen countless conflicts between different human factions. True, Marcus acknowledged. And every one of those conflicts taught us something new about warfare, strategy, and survival. Humans who couldn't adapt died out. Humans who could adapt survived and passed their knowledge to the next generation. After thousands of years of this process, you get a species that's very good at fighting wars. Emperor Zathmar was beginning to see the larger picture. You're telling me that humanity has spent its entire evolutionary history preparing for galactic warfare without knowing it? In a sense, yes. Every human military organization has been tested against other human military organizations. We've had to develop tactics that work against opponents who think exactly like we do, who know our capabilities as well as we know theirs. Fighting alien species with predictable tactical doctrines is actually easier than fighting other humans. The implications of this revelation were staggering. If humans had been refining their military capabilities against equally intelligent opponents for thousands of years, they might possess tactical knowledge that exceeded anything the established galactic powers had developed. Fleet Admiral Kexthro was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. What do you want from us? What are humanity's terms for peaceful coexistence? Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the arena, an expression that somehow managed to be both friendly and unsettling. We want to be left alone to develop at our own pace, with access to galactic trade networks and technological exchange programs. We want recognition as a sovereign species with the right to defend ourselves if attacked. And we want assurance that no galactic power will attempt to conquer or colonize human territory. And in exchange? The Emperor asked. We won't do to you what we're capable of doing to you, Marcus said simply. Humans have no interest in conquering galactic civilization. We're perfectly happy to remain in our own star system and pursue our own development. But if any species decides to threaten humanity, they'll discover just how effective our unconventional tactics can be when applied on a galactic scale. The platform fell silent as the officials processed this information. What Marcus was describing wasn't traditional diplomacy backed by military force. It was an offer of mutual non-aggression backed by the demonstration of capabilities that could destabilize the entire galactic power structure. General Morduk was the first to speak. You're proposing a balance of terror. Your species possesses the ability to cause significant damage to established civilizations, so those civilizations should avoid provoking you. That's one way to look at it, Marcus agreed. Another way is to say that we're offering peace through mutual understanding of capabilities. Your empire is powerful on Wo,